welcome to City Life. Today on the program we meet up with one of the business delegates from the San Francisco trip. We find out how young people can get a break from the quake and style with Stephanie Rumble. But first, Reid Stiven from the EQC. Wow, what a big weekend of shakes we had.
Yes, we have, Kanita.
So tell me about, there'll be a new event for this one?
New event from Monday, so that'll take that out to September 7 for the last day, 90 days to report new damage.
Any idea about the new damage?
No reports yet, but I suspect that there may be some down Selwyn Way.
Okay, and of course there's another deadline coming up from the April 16 event, that big one on the Saturday evening. Yeah,
no, that takes us to mid-July for that, I think.
Okay.
So again, 90 days after the earthquake.
All right. So let's go through some recent stats. How are things going with EQC?
Great. We've done over 20,000 of the major damage inspections. We're rolling out our iPads. That's going really well. Teams are really positive about that. Feedback from our claimants is positive as well. So we've moved into Waimakariri, completed the 2,700 claims what we wanted to get done in Selwyn. So now we're doing the same in Waimakariri for those people that hadn't been seen from September. Okay. So we've started on that as well. It's really good.
So you're comfortable with where the EQC is at the moment?
Absolutely. We're within the timeframes that we publicised after the rapid assessment program, so we're meeting them at the moment.
Okay, let's look at some questions from the viewers. I'm in the process of purchasing a property. What happens with the claim the current owner has lodged? Okay,
a couple of things around that. They can transfer the claim to the new owner, or they can negotiate a reduction in the cost of the property. But most commonly, the claim transfers to the new owner.
All right.
It has to be signed off by both parties, though.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. Question 2, how long from the date of the final assessment will it take for me to be notified in writing from EQC as to the extent of the damage? Yeah,
look, we're hoping about a month, but we've got a backlog of claims at the moment because of the calculations we have to do over the multiple events. We hope to have that cleared in the next couple of weeks, so from here on we're hoping to meet a month turnaround on that time frame.
Okay. I'm in a wheelchair and my wheelchair access has been damaged. How can I get this fixed?
Yeah, we'd like a number for that person. We can sort that out pretty quickly, actually.
Okay, so they can call 0800 damage?
Yeah, or if you've got a contact for them that you can pass to us, we'll contact them direct to make sure we get that underway.
Okay, we'll do. Can we send through complaints about tradesmen overcharging for work because they know it will be paid by the EQC?
Yes, you can. 0800 damage, you can lodge that. They pass it on to a team in Wellington where we log all our complaints, or alternatively you can go to our website where there is a complaints area on the website, log it there. But we're pretty interested in that. Obviously we'd like to look after people's money, and what they charge for those emergency repairs comes off their final settlement, so it's really important that we keep those costs reasonable.
Okay. And finally, I haven't been able to get my main heating source fixed yet. Can I do the work?
Absolutely. If you're able to go on and do the work, yes, you can. Again, that will be deducted from your final settlement. You need to remember that it's like for like. So if you've got a heat pump now, you can only have the same model or equivalent model heat pump. And you can't go from a heat pump to a pellet burner where the costs are going to be there's going to be a large difference in costs. But we can help again, 0800 damage or heating at EQR, and try and push that through there. I think Fletcher's have done well over 5,000 heat installations now. They've got another 11,000 on order. So that's really progressing well at the moment. So that's your heating scheme with EQC? Okay.
Yep. And how can people find out more about this? Can they go to your website and find out about the heating?
I'd push them to to the heating at EQR if they email that. EQR also have a website, I understand, where you can look at the heating and what you're able to get through the program. But 0800 damage, talk to us, we'll pass it on to Fletcher's.
Okay, so the things from today, we've got a new event from Monday's big earthquake, or big aftershock, so that's 7th of September. And of course for the April 16 event, July 17 is the cut-off for that. They can go to 0800 damage, or they can call that number, or your website.
Yep, which is just www.eqc.govt.co.nz.
Or, of course, the Facebook page.
And I don't know that you do.
Facebook.com/Earthquake Commission.
Yep, great.
Reid, good to have you on the program. Now, if anybody has any more questions, they can email me, kanita@ctv.co.nz.
Fantastic.
And we'll have you back on the program to answer those questions.
Great.
Thank you, Reid. Now I'd like to welcome Graeme Riach from Harmon, who's here to talk about employment law. Now, why is it so important to have an employment agreement?
Yeah, morning, Kanita. It's interesting, actually, that our current employment legislation has been in place for over 10 years, and that actually requires by law that there be a written employment agreement. So that's the first answer. It's actually required, but it's often staggering to me how many organisations still don't have written employment agreements for their employees, some over 10 years later. So, but it is important, both because it's required by law, but it sets out the framework for the relationship, and hopefully it's the sort of thing that you can, once having signed it up, put it in a drawer and never have to look at it again. That's the ideal, but sometimes things do go awry, and that's when you go into the drawer, get it out and see what should actually happen. So
these people who, even in full-time employment, don't have contracts?
Correct, yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So who should be looking to get an employment contract? Is it just people who work full-time?
No, not at all. It's anyone who's an employee or has an employee working for them, whether that's full-time, part-time, and even casual employees still require a written employment agreement.
What about contractors? Do they need employment agreements?
No, they have a different type of agreement called an independent contractors agreement. Normally that's in writing, and that's not something that's required by law to be in writing, but normally it is. And sometimes, quite often, they'll operate through a company or some other organisation as well, rather than themselves personally.
Okay. Let's look at some of the things that would be inside an employment agreement.
Mm-hmm. Well, typically they commence with just a description of what the job is, a job title, and sometimes the job description is in a schedule at the back, because that can sort of get slotted in once it's all sorted out. There is a trial period, or is often invoked or used in these agreements, and your viewers may have seen some recent publicity about personal grievance-free trial periods that have been introduced for a couple of years, but they've just recently been extended to all employment relationships. Previously, they applied only to employers of less than 20 employees, so the government's seen fit to extend it to all employers. So what that means is that if the clause is in there, you can take someone on, give them a trial period of up to 90 days, and if it doesn't work out, and you have to call it to a halt, you know you're not going to be facing a personal grievance afterwards. So that's one thing. Employment agreements also deal with leave, annual leave, statutory holidays, bereavement leave. Often there's a reference to parental leave, maternity leave, that sort of thing. And also what happens on termination once the parties have decided to go their separate ways. And sometimes that deals with things like restraints of trade. If the employer doesn't want the employee sort of heading off and working for a competitor and using all their information doing so.
Okay.
So there's a whole lot of other things as well in there, but yeah.
What sort of things should we be looking out for? I mean, we should definitely get advice before signing, but what sort of things should we be looking for?
Yeah, the Act actually requires that employees do obtain advice, or not, sorry, that they do, but they have the opportunity to obtain advice on the agreement before they sign it. And they actually normally sign an acknowledgement on the agreement that they've had that reasonable opportunity to get advice before signing up. And it's recommended that they do, so that they understand what it is they're signing up for, really.
Okay. Let's look at things like holidays. Now, what are the sort of special circumstances surrounding holidays?
Well, there's all different types of holidays. Of course, there's annual leave, there's and statutory holidays particularly. Sometimes there's long service leave if someone's been in a relationship for, however long the employment agreement provides for, and extra holidays as a result of that. One thing that's just recently also come in, Canetta, is the ability for employees to transfer public holidays. So if they're actually working on a public holiday, they can have it on another, or have it transferred to another day.
Okay. Is it like in lieu kind of thing?
Well, no, that always was there, but this is actually saying, well, instead of having a day in lieu plus being paid at time and a half, which was required, instead they agree, and it has to be an agreement between the employee and the employer, to transfer their public holiday to a different day.
Okay.
And so they'll work that day, normal rates, but have a different public holiday.
So why has that changed? What happened to the time and a half?
Well, it's still there. Employers can still pay at time and a half, but it was there in that it sometimes suited people such as airline pilots and others, freezing workers, or people who are on shift work also. If they're going from one day into another day, one of those was a public holiday. There's quite a bit, and there was some case law about that as well that sort of heralded it. So I think that's the reason for the change.
Okay.
And another significant change in this area is the ability for employees to request that part of their annual leave be paid out instead of taking the leave itself. And that's obviously been the subject of some media comment too, but that applies up to a week of the 4-week minimum, and it's only the employee that can ask for that. The employer can't require the employee to do that. But if they do ask, then the employer has to consider it, but again it requires their agreement. It's not a divine right of the employee to actually say, I want this paid out.
Is that right? Okay. Let's look at redundancy, because that seems to be very topical at the moment. Yeah,
unfortunately in this area it has been, with many businesses in the CBD unable to operate. Hotels, you would have seen something recently about that. So it is an unfortunate aspect of business where you do have to lay staff off if there isn't sufficient work for them. And I guess the key there is that, like everything in this area, there's an appropriate process to go through if you're an employer, and there's no substitute really for actually getting on the phone to your legal advisor and just getting an update as to what you should do, because most grievances in this area arise through an inappropriate process being adopted. So the main thing that the employer must do is consult with the employee prior to making a decision to disestablish their position, and that's the big thing. They have to actually be consulted about it, have an opportunity to provide feedback, input, suggestions. They might, for example, decide, well, maybe lose my job completely, what about I go down to half-time? And that might be all that the employer needs. So they do have to be consulted before a final decision is made. And then once it is, there has to be the appropriate notice given under the employment agreement. Sometimes, or some agreements, depending on the organisation, provide a formula for compensation in the event of redundancy. And I think it's fair to say that they're probably in the minority in terms of the agreements that provide that. But a typical formula that might be applied is something like 2 weeks for the first year of employment, or the equivalent of 2 weeks' salary, I should say, and then a week for every year of employment thereafter. And sometimes those formula are themselves capped, so it might be up to a maximum of 26 weeks, for example. But the important thing is that there is no right to compensation unless it's in your agreement.
Okay.
People sometimes believe that if they're being made redundant, they should almost automatically get compensation. It's not the case. It has to be in the agreement, unless the employer gets the process wrong, and then they might well be entitled to some, but that's down the road a bit.
So that's another reason for getting advice before signing that contract.
Absolutely.
And of course, Harmons can help us out there.
Well, yes, we can. We do that work. I'm actually a specialist in that area, so I guess it's about just sometimes a phone call to your lawyer can actually save you a hell of a lot later. Instead of avoiding that cost at the outset.
Okay. Graeme, thank you so much for coming on the programme today.
Pleasure.
Now, if you have a topic you would like Graeme to discuss next time Harmons is here, you can email me, kaneta@ctv.co.nz, and we can discuss that next time. We'll be back after the break. And I'd like to welcome to the programme a member of Youthtown, Rebecca. What is Youthtown?
What is Youthtown? Youthtown is an Auckland-based youth development organisation. So we started in Auckland over 75 years ago, but now we've got centres all around the country. And we sort of based what we do around young people, giving young people the opportunity to express themselves sort of creatively, physically and socially. So that's at the core of our programs.
So how long have you been in Christchurch for?
Since March, so not very long.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came into Christchurch sort of post-earthquake, I guess?
Yeah, Youthtown did. I'm a Christchurch local, I have to say. But yeah, Youthtown came into Christchurch after the February earthquake. We did have plans to be here at some stage in the future, and we brought those plans forward when we learned about the events in February. Yeah.
What kind of things are you doing in Christchurch at the moment with Youthtown?
Well, in Christchurch, we are doing a lot of work around the twin schools. So we are working around Linwood College and Cashmere, who are sharing sites.
Oh, the doubling up of schools.
Doubling up,
okay.
yeah. So we're running programs in the morning for Linwood students because they're going to school in the afternoon. And we're also running some programs in the afternoon for Cashmere students. So all that we do in collaboration with other youth organisations that are already here. So we're just sort of supporting where we can and offering our skills because we've got staff down here from Auckland and they've got a lot of good skills, so we just want to help out where we can. Yeah, and so we're also doing lunchtime programs in schools with Blue Light and the police and just other school visits as well to schools out in the eastern suburbs.
That's cool. I didn't actually know they still did Blue Light discos.
Yes, it's not just discos though. I
really?
thought that too.
Tell me more.
Yeah. They do all sorts of things actually. They have youth development programs, but what they're doing at the moment is just going to schools at lunchtimes and just having fun. So they have a barbecue, sausage sizzle, and then we run sports activities for the kids. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So tell me about the things that you do at these schools. You say you spend time with them in the mornings. Is it just sport or other things you do?
Well, there's a whole range of programs that we're doing. So our staff are pretty sports orientated, but we also say we're running breakdancing workshops on a Friday night. We have a breakfast club that's just started, and that's with some other youth organisations as well. So that's just providing breakfast for kids and a place for them to hang out and stuff before they go to school, because having that social time is really important at the moment, because when you're sharing a school site and it takes so long to get to school, you don't really have so much time for your friends. So yeah,
it's true. Now tell me about Break from the Quake.
Well, that's a really exciting thing. We're really proud to be involved with. So basically, Break from the Quake is school holiday camps. So they're in the July school holidays, and they're for Christchurch young people, and they're all expenses paid. So Christchurch young people will get to fly up to Auckland and attend these camps for a week, and they're on a variety of sites as well. So there's two ways that young people can be nominated to go to those camps. So firstly, if they fit the criteria of needing time out. So time outs are sort of for young people and children who have been, badly affected by the quake. So maybe they've suffered a loss in their family or lost their home. Maybe their parents have been made redundant. Something that's really, stressful for them, and they need a break. And then the other criteria is community contribution. So that's for young people who may have stepped up in their communities after the quake. Maybe they volunteered at their local youth centre. Maybe they fetched water for the elderly people on their street. So yeah, and then also within that, there are spaces for young people and children who are from families who were involved in the emergency rescue effort after. Yeah, so either USAR people or St John's, police, fire service.
So tell me about the camp.
Well, there's going to be several different campsites in Auckland, so depending on the age of the children and their skills will depend on where they go. So there's two age groups, that's 10 to 13 and 14 to 17. So we have campsites on Great Barrier Island and also in Tongariro National Park. So they're run by the Outdoor Pursuit Centre. So they're really adventure focused outdoors, doing things like that. And then we've got a couple of campsites in Auckland, and so they will be sort of giving the children and young people a real Auckland experience. So they'll get to go to the zoo and Rainbow's End and go over to Rangitoto and go up, walk up the cone there and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
This must be costing a lot of money. Where's the funding coming from?
Well, we've got a variety of funding sources, Youthtown. So we have funds from Gaming Trust, we have Property Trust, we have donations as well. But for the camps, we've been really, really lucky that we've had some awesome supporters come on board. So Air New Zealand have really come to the party with some good prices on flights. Telecom are going to be providing 500 $20 phone cards for the young people when they're on camps, so they can bring home. And everyone we've gone to in Auckland and told what we're doing, they've really, really wanted to help. So the real cost of what the cost is nothing like the real cost. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, how can young people find out about this, or how can someone nominate someone?
Well, schools can nominate, or community organisations can also nominate. But the best thing to do would probably go to our website, and you can get more information there. And also the forms should be available to download. So yeah, the website is www.youthtown, or one word, .org.nz.
Great. So, yeah. Rebecca, good to see you, and it's good what you're doing with the young people in our community.
Thanks very much.
You're back with City Life, and I'd like to welcome back to the program Zach from Christchurch City Libraries. It's good to have you here again.
Good to be here again.
Now, last time you were here, you had a whole pile of books that you thought might take up some of the categories at the New Zealand Post Children's Book Awards.
Yep.
Any luck there?
A couple of them, I think, of the ones I picked did take out awards. Okay. In the picture book category, Margaret Mahi's Moon Farm McPhee was the winner of the picture book category, and also the book of the year as well. So.
Yeah, we had her on the program yesterday.
Oh yeah, she's really cool. Yeah, she's really good. A couple of the ones that I thought would win actually took out the Children's Choice category rather than the category that's voted by the judges. So with the awards, they have most of the prizes are judged by the three judges that they pick, but then they also have Children's Choice Awards that they've started up in recent years as well, where they have children actually have a voting card that they can pick up from bookshops and libraries, and they choose the one book that they think should win. So they have, in each of the categories, they have winners as well. So Smiling Jack, which was one of the winners that I picked, I thought might have won the Young Adult Award, actually got the Children's Choice Award. So so I think it's quite a good way of doing it, actually, that the kids get to choose some of the awards as well. Because the children obviously tend to pick quite different books from what the adult judges do as well. So it's always interesting to see that they never quite match up what the children pick and what the judges pick. They're very different choices. But that's great.
So you're quite happy with yourself with choosing some of the ones that won?
Yeah, I think so. Even the ones that I sort of didn't pick that would win, I'm still really happy with them. I think they're all really good books, really good selection of books this year. So
okay.
Yeah,
cool.
that's great.
Now, what are the other books you've brought along with you today?
I did bring along some of the other ones that were in the New Zealand Post Children's Book Awards. They've also, now that they're finished, they have the Leanza Children's Book Awards, which are the Library Information Association of New Zealand run them, and they're all chosen by librarians. So they have a panel of 3 or 4 judges as well, but they all work in libraries, the national libraries, school libraries, and they choose the finalists in each of the categories. Slightly different from the New Zealand Post Book Awards in that instead of a overall picture book category, they have an illustration award. So the picture books that are in there are judged on the illustrations rather than the story as such. Gavin Bishop's and Diana Noon's Quakey Cat was one of the ones that was included in the illustration category this year.
Great.
For some reason, it missed out on being included in the New Zealand Post Book Awards, but the judges, I was quite pleased the judges picked it up for the Leanza Book Awards, because it's a great book and just kind of sums up how we feel living in Christchurch and the things that happened to us with the earthquake, and it's just a really nice story and a great message to it as well.
Why do you think this missed out of the New Zealand Post Children's Book Awards?
I think it was something to do with the criteria that they have to pick. Sometimes it's to do with the time that they have they've got to submit an entry. I think maybe it was too close to the cut-off point. Maybe I'm not entirely sure, but I think that was sort of our reasoning behind it. We were sort of discussing it and possibly why it didn't get picked, but. Yeah, so very glad to see it got onto the Leanza Children's Book Awards.
So when are these awards?
I think they're in end of July, August time. I think it is. Still a couple of months till so they can kind of read through the finalists again and try and figure out who they think should win. But I think it's actually, to be honest, personal opinion, I think it's probably a better selection of books in the Leanza Book Awards. Yeah. I think there's more of a range of books. I didn't feel some of the the categories were quite broad enough, I think, maybe, but yeah, definitely there's some really good books in all of the categories for the Leanza Book Awards, so
great.
Really strong again this year.
So how are things going at the Christchurch City Libraries?
Good, yeah, we're slowly getting things up and running, and I think not too much longer, hopefully, until some of the other bigger libraries like Fendalton and Upper Riccarton open. Just waiting for the council to be able to move back into the Hereford Street building again. But yeah, it's really good. The still numbers are really high and of people coming in and kids getting books out and coming on to our preschool programming that we have. So yeah, it's great.
Tell me about the outreach programs that you do have.
We have a couple of outreach librarians that their full-time job is they go to preschools and also out to a families outreach who she goes out to some of the families and preschools and schools and things out there, and she just takes around, does some membership and talks about the library in general and trying to get kids interested and parents and families interested as well. So,
great.
So yeah, it's joining their team. It's been quite good because we've been able to get out into other schools that we haven't been able to before. And this week, I'm going out to some schools to talk about our kids blog that we have, and trying to get some other kids that we're interested in writing book reviews and things on there as well. So,
tell me more about that.
Well, we started up a kids blog that was just about a year ago, actually, and our aim was to get children in Christchurch and Canterbury talking about books they're reading and discussing it with other kids, and being able to write their own book reviews and see them up on the blog for anybody to be able to look at. We, as library staff, write a lot of those as well. A lot of the books that we read, we write reviews and put them up, and the kids can go on there and comment on each other's book reviews and what they've written. And we have competitions. We also have a monthly star author, which is generally a New Zealand author that actually goes onto the blog and will blog and write about their writing and their books and give writing tips and things for the kids throughout the whole month, which is really cool. And had some really great authors on there that have really got the kids interested. Our author we had on last month, Sharon Holt, she's a New Zealand author who writes history, a lot of sort of history books for kids, and she had a get your name in her book competition where the kids could actually comment and say why they should have their name as a character in her new book. So, and the kids got really enthusiastic about that. It's just something that they don't really get the chance to do normally, so it's really cool.
So how can we find out more about the blog? Is it Christchurch City Libraries?
Yeah, if you go to christchurchcitylibraries.com and go down to our kids tab at the bottom of the page, and there's a link to the kids blog on there as well.
Great.
So.
Zach, always good to have you on the program. We'll catch up with you in another couple of weeks to check out with those Leanza Book Awards as well. And we'll be back after this break. Welcome back. A couple of weeks ago, 5 Christchurch City councillors and a small delegation of business leaders from Christchurch went to San Francisco to learn from their experience of dealing with a major earthquake. Now, Tim, you were one of the business delegates. How did it go for you?
Look, personally, it was a really interesting process. We went over with the view of looking at opportunities that business could do things better, and I guess as a business delegate, I was interested in how the business recovered and how businesses were able to benefit from, dare I say, the opportunities that come out of such an event. I think what we learned was that actually business is not just the after event, it's actually the driver of the process. And what we actually probably took out was that there were three C's that came out of this. It's to do with confidence, it's to do with capital, and it's to do with communication. And if we have confidence of the people to rebuild their homes, to rebuild their businesses, for the multinationals to stay in town, then that will drive the capital, and the capital will then drive the rebuild. And communication is the key that keeps these two things together. So it actually realised that business will drive this rather than actually being at the other end of it when the city is rebuilt.
Was this surprising for you when you found this out?
It was surprising. I mean, we didn't realise the involvement that business was going to have in the process moving forward. And I guess it was probably the example of New Orleans and the example of San Francisco. And we were lucky to have people who had worked in both of those areas showed us that New Orleans didn't really involve business, whereas San Francisco did. And I think for us it was a major eye-opener to realise that there is actually a need to have business in there at the early stages right through every decision-making process.
Isn't it surprising that in the same country they didn't learn from their own mistakes? Or they didn't learn from something that actually worked?
I guess it's a big country. And I guess there's a number of the people that we spoke to who worked through the San Francisco recovery and rebuild process also worked in the later stages of the New Orleans process. I guess it was the city of New Orleans that started off on their process and then effectively was replaced as time went by.
Okay.
So it's been it was certainly an interesting learning curve to realise the involvement and the necessity to have buy-in from business and all stakeholders at the outset.
Let's look at when you were over there. Who was showing you around, from the business community?
We were spoilt with the opportunities that we were given. We were able to see. We went over to. We had a look through the Berkeley, and we saw that in Berkeley is hosted by the Mayor of Berkeley. That was an interesting scenario there because they've had the natural disasters, including earthquakes, they've had fires, they've had a number of different natural disasters. So their level of preparedness was significantly greater than probably other areas that we saw. We went to Santa Cruz and we were hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. Now, Santa Cruz was an interesting one, very, very close to Christchurch. They lost about 80% of their buildings in the central downtown. And as a result of that, they had a major rebuild process. Now, they adopted a very interesting model of inclusiveness, and they were up and running, and that the area is now economically performing well in excess of what it was prior to the event. We were fortunate to see the United States Geological Survey. We met with them to understand about, which is not from a business perspective, but we also are fortunate to see in San Francisco, hosted by the Mayor's office, the disaster recovery plans, economic plans, that were second to none. I mean, they've been there, but they're preparing for another one. I mean, like 68 or 70% chance they're going to have a major event in the next 20 years. So those stats are significantly greater than what we are looking at in our future.
Wow. So based on what you saw, how do you think Christchurch is getting on?
Look, I think Christchurch it needs to go through an area of change. I think when the council were elected in September following the earthquake, they were elected on a mandate to lead a city that required some rebuild in some areas and some buildings needed to be replaced. Following February, we've actually got a major change, and we're actually now rebuilding a city. Now, the mandate may not be there for that right now, and there's two ways of fixing that. One of them is actually going back to the people to get their mandate and their support. The other is actually to include business, to include stakeholders, take the existing group that have the, who are the elected officials in their executive, and move forward. I think there is a lot of concern that things aren't happening fast enough, and that's going to create a decrease in confidence. There are limitations to what you can do, but it is imperative that we actually get the confidence back into the community. City Council start engaging with the business in the wider sector, and that will enable us to bring the capital so we can answer that. The first question that anyone talks about when they're developing a plan is how we're going to pay for it.
Exactly. In what ways can you do things differently from what you observed in San Francisco?
We can do. There's opportunities for the way we fund. We look at the need for funding in this city, and we're going to need a lot of private finance. So I think we probably had a look at it and said, look, we need to change the way we're going to look at financing. There will be a shortfall. The second thing is we need to look at ways of getting easy wins to get confidence back in the community, because the longer people are out of their homes, out of their businesses, the harder it will be to get them in. It's called the curve of decay, and we need to stem that so that we can actually get confidence in little wins. It might be a shopping centre opened up in Cashel Street, people back in the city in a small part. It might be a farmer's market. It could be buildings coming down quicker so people can see that we're actually clearing. We're sick of seeing rubble. We want to see clear space, because that's the start of the future rebuild. So I think how we do it will be about looking at the financing, getting confidence out to people.
Okay. Tim, finally, how will you make sure the things that you learned in San Francisco will be done here in Christchurch?
I think we've got an obligation to hold those that are making the decisions to some degree accountable, and I think we need to make sure that the questions are always being asked, are they doing it right? And so, we learned a lot. We're in a very privileged position to have seen what we did, to have been hosted by the people that we were, and I think we're in a very strong position to be able to say, we saw it done this way, it worked worked very well. We need to publicly ensure that the council and specifically the office of the chief executive down are actually operating in a way that is going to see and have a high degree of confidence moving forward.
Great.
So we will be holding them to account.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for coming on the
programme.
programme.
Thank you very much,
Now I'd like to welcome to the programme Cathy, a violinist at the Christchurch Symphony Orchestra. Now you've had a big task on your hands recently.
Yes, I had 3 musicians. We have a wonderful programme of Russian music that we want to present. And suddenly we realised that all the venues in Christchurch had been damaged by the quake. The Great Hall was one that I love playing in, and Christchurch Music School. So then we had the task of trying to find a suitable venue. So I visited about 5 or 6 venues, and I suddenly realised that around Christchurch there are loads of beautiful little venues. We needed a piano, which was an added complication. And then a friend of mine, Trish Rainey, said they were moving the Christchurch Music School piano from the Molly Clark room into a church up in Kashmir called St Augustine's. And I went to visit this church, and it's beautiful. It's a wooden one, has beautiful slate roof, very picturesque. And inside is a lot of wooden panelling, which is lovely for acoustics. So once I heard the piano was going in there, I said, I'd really like to do my concert there.
So that's how you chose it?
Yes, yes.
And it's not just in Christchurch you've got a concert, you're actually going outside of Christchurch as well?
Yes, we were asked to play in Akaroa, and we had the same problem there. We were asked to play in the Powerhouse, Orion Powerhouse Gallery, and again that's been damaged. And so they've moved a piano into the Gaiety Hall. And so we're going to do our concert in the Gaiety Hall on Sunday.
Great. So tell me about your concert that you will be performing.
Well, we've chosen Russian music. It's called From Rhythm to Romance. And the music I was practicing is either very exciting, very rhythmic and folk-like, or it's very romantic and it's very lush and beautiful, really contrasting elements. And it's all based on Rubinstein. Somebody gave me some music of the Violin Sonata by Rubinstein, and he started 2 conservatories, the Moscow and the St. Petersburg one. And so I looked at composers who'd been through those conservatories, and we sort of drew on a program all based around the influence of those Russian schools. So, yeah.
So tell me about the other musicians in your concert.
Oh, they're 2 of my favourite Christchurch musicians. One is Kirsten Simpson. We did a concert of Spanish music last year that went down really well. We both really enjoyed it. And then for one piece we've invited Gretchen LaRoche, who's a well-known clarinetist, and she's going to join us for the Khachaturian Trio for clarinet, violin and piano. Very exciting piece of music.
Great. So tell me about the life of a musician in Christchurch at the moment. Is it hard to find work?
Oh, it's been a very interesting journey. I've kind of been looking outside the symphony orchestra, which has been waiting sort of on hold. And so I've been doing things like going to Greymouth. I took a group out to Greymouth and we did concerts there. Or I've been playing for corporate functions and events. I've picked up a lot of teaching. For some reason, the earthquake has made a lot of violin students phone me. I don't know why. So I'm doing a lot of teaching as well, and practicing and putting on my own concerts, sort of finding little new avenues, but we'll all be really glad when the orchestra is back up and running in the second half of this year.
Yeah. So what will be the first thing that they'll be presenting when they do get back up and running?
I think it's the cathedral concert, which is now, I'm not quite sure. I'd have to check up on the details of it. It's all in my diary.
Okay. We can, of course, keep an eye on the CSO website about information about things like that, can't we?
Absolutely.
Let's look at some more details about your concert that's coming up. So it's in Christchurch.
It's in Christchurch at St Augustine's, and it's going to be a 7:30 concert. The tickets for it are $15 or $20, and I think that's about all I can think of.
And Akaroa on the weekend?
Akaroa, it's a 3:00 afternoon concert in Gaiety Hall. Yeah.
Okay. And before we go, we should actually talk about your violin. This is a 150-year-old violin. There's a lot of history there.
Yes. I actually bought it from a Ukrainian who was living in Israel, and he brought the violin out to South Africa where I bought it, and I brought it with me out to New Zealand. So it's a very international, well-travelled violin, and it's looking forward to playing its Russian program music, almost going back to its Ukrainian roots, I suppose, in a way.
So what's it like for you as the player of this instrument to have such a history with it?
Oh, it's very special. I think for any musician, the violin becomes the voice of the musician. And the more you get to know it and the more you practice it, the more you can speak through it. So this, for me, at the moment, is my voice.
That's beautiful. Really nice to have you on the program, Cathy, and good luck with your performances.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back after this break. Now I'd like to welcome to City Life Warren Head, the editor of The Headliner. Welcome to City Life.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you here.
Well, it's been nice to be invited.
So tell me about The Headliner.
Well, The Headliner's been going a little while now. It's got a large number of readers around New Zealand and overseas. We put out a fortnightly print edition magazine, but we've also now put it on www.headliner.co.nz, and it's a 24-hour business and investment news site. We have video running on there with updated stock market reports throughout the day, coming in from around New Zealand and Australia. And we cover the economy, we cover all the listed public companies, and we cover property, and a little section we call Family Money. That's what it looks like. That is The Headliner. It's a pretty glossy-looking publication.
Beautiful thing.
Isn't it? And it's pretty packed with stuff, as you can see. And fortunately, we have some advertisers as well.
They help.
They help. So that's our core product, but it's part of a magazine stable that spawns other things as well. So another one we have that looks at property and trade is this one here. Coming out about a year now. It's going around the world through networks with Trade New Zealand or Trade and Enterprise and Export New Zealand and Foreign Affairs and Trade, and it goes out with our weekly shipping newspaper. So we're in a few areas. That's another big glossy. So we cover everything related to international trade and industrial property in this particular publication.
Okay. So where do you get your stories from?
They usually come to us. People make contact and they send us material, or we find them and then we talk to them. We go to lots of meetings, lots of briefings, and we do interviews as well. So, fully fledged sort of business media, if you like.
Yeah. So your magazines take a look at what's happening in the property scene, is that right?
Yes, that's one of our areas. Headliner looks at anything that's interesting in terms of property, and we've been covering the earthquake in Christchurch very, very fully in that respect, and looking at the company effects. The other publication, Trade News, looks at anything to do with industrial property or anything interesting, that relates to movement of people around the country, overseas. So this particular issue here has got a very nice piece on the back about Christchurch Airport Terminal.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Is it ever?
What is Jim Volt down out there? It's a beautiful thing.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's been the biggest property event in recent weeks, apart from the constant flow of earthquake news?
Well, I think the airport terminal.
Yeah.
The airport terminal is quite a development, and it's got around about $260 million of an investment in it so far. Little things in there that work superbly, like the length of the check-in areas. The baggage machine that goes around and brings your bags back is one of the longest in the country. So the whole thing is a massive boost, I think, in confidence. And coming up from behind that, we'll be taking a look at the new industrial park in our next issue of Trade News called Dakota Park, where they're rapidly clearing land on the northern side of the city there for new buildings to go in.
Oh, good. Now, going back to the airport, it gives our airport an international focus, doesn't it, finally?
It does, and it's one of the things I think we need to hub around in terms of what inspires us. We've got an airport there that's quite capable of taking us into a level beyond that we've had in the past. And I think that's going to be one of the secrets to the rebuild, in keeping that confidence flowing and keeping the capital coming in. And, by hell, the city has taken a real belt and a real knock in terms of capital values in the inner city, in terms of the commercial area.
It was also really encouraging to see something finished, wasn't it?
Yes.
In the middle of the whole earthquake drama, I guess.
It met all the targets. It came in on budget.
Yeah.
The doors opened, as Jim Bolt said it would, on time.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice place to go.
It sure is. It's nice. It's nice and local for us, isn't it?
Yes.
So what do we know about the trend in the value of commercial properties in the city?
Well, the unfortunate thing there is that if you look at, if I use my magazines as an example, and say we have a very tall high-rise building here, and everybody decides that they're going to build not 18 floors, but 5 floors in the future, or maybe 2 floors or 3 floors. The effect of that is that the valuation of these other properties will alter dramatically downwards. And in terms of the landlords are currently indicating that they would prefer to build 5 levels or upwards, and we have some numbers on that from recent surveys. But the valuation levels change as the property value is affected by the rental flow. So if I've got 18 levels, I'm getting rent off right now, but in the future I'm only renting 5 because I can't rent the rest because people don't want to work in them.
No.
The value of this building must drop. Now, this is going to be common across the city. And when those buildings are removed, and now there are, 10-day demolition orders on lots of the properties in the inner city, when they become bare land and the land no longer has a building on it, there's nothing there to lease. So the unimproved land becomes the new valuation. So I think we'll see quite a shock coming through in terms of the rateable size of the inner city, something the City Council will be very conscious of going forward and will affect their income, their revenue off rates, is one of the factors driving the city for the future. One would hope that the rates are reasonable to get people to go back, but they're going to have less income coming off the rates, so it's quite dramatic. One of the real estate companies, Colliers International, just in the last 2 or 3 days released a report of a survey related to companies that were in the inner part of the city, and there were 25,000 people working in there, and they surveyed these companies and they asked would they go back. 76% said yes they would, 21% no way, we're not going back. And of those who are going back, the preference was for low rise. The landlords seem to be fixing on 5 levels as the low rise future.
Yeah. Okay, finally, just very briefly, what is the demand like for property across retail, commercial and industrial right now?
Well, retail is very hard to fix. The retail sector has moved. It's moved to the northwest of the town. It's moved to Addington. It's moving to Papanui, less evidently yet. It's moved to the Burnside area. Big demand for F&B places, food and beverage. You see people walking around the streets looking for a place to buy a sandwich. I'm now in the northwest area. I've identified about 10 places I can go to lunch, and I've got a sort of little picking order of those. And as far as industrial is concerned, that's the good news. The rest of the world needs to know that Christchurch's industrial heartland, the Islington, Hornby area, is strong, is growing, and demand is good there. And so the vacancy rates are coming down in Hornby, Islington. Now, if we get that area moving aggressively forward, that's a good sign. That's one of the positives. The other big positive in terms of retail was Arthur Barnett from Dunedin deciding they're coming back to Christchurch after 5 years out of the city.
They are?
They are, and that will be something to look forward to.
That is exciting. Warren, so good to have you on the program. We look forward to catching up with you perhaps in a couple of weeks.
Thanks very much.
Program, Stephanie Rumble from Flair Image. We're here to talk about how to look good on a shoestring. Now, how do we look good when we have a tight budget?
The thing is to make sure that you add a few economical pieces to your wardrobe every season. So instead of buying one big lot of clothes every 3 years and hoping for the best, you're best to add 2 or 3 or 4 items every season, even if you are on a budget. And I've shopped with ladies who have a total budget of $200 to buy their entire wardrobe. So it can definitely be done.
Okay, so what should we look out for when we're shopping for budget items?
Okay, so look for quality. I mean, sometimes it's more difficult, but do look for quality. Go for things that have got a percentage of natural fibre in them, because they will generally wash and wear a little bit better and last the distance.
Okay. So let's look at natural fibres. What sort of things should
Wool,
we be...
cotton. If you've got a little bit of silk in them, you can pick up some good silk things on sale as well, combined with some synthetic fibres to give them that longevity too. So the combination is really good.
Okay, what should we avoid?
You should avoid things that don't fit you properly, that are fads that you're really drawn to, that just because they're cheap, you buy them.
Yeah.
Or I might buy these and fit into them in 10 years' time, or 10 weeks. I do see a lot of that hanging in ladies' wardrobes. They buy a lovely pair of trousers on sale. It costs them bargain, $25, and they don't fit them and they look terrible because they're the wrong size.
Yeah. But I am going to squeeze into it. Maybe they'll say that. Maybe,
And I say buy for now, because you've only
Right.
got now, haven't you?
That's true.
Yes.
Now, can you recommend some good places for cheap and cheerful clothing?
Okay, so Glassons would have to be one of my favourites. And people do say, I'm too old for Glassons, and that's rubbish. I work very closely with the lovely Tui at Glassons at Westfield Riccarton, and she's closer to 70 than she is to 60. So Tui's amazing. She wears all Glassons clothes. Supre's another good option for the base garments. I mean, this is a Glassons piece. Just a base layer garment. This here is as well. And we've got a pair of trousers here. Good pair of trousers. Leggings, also from Glassons. And then a jacket, leather jacket in here from Just Jeans. Okay, Farmers, Kmart, the Warehouse, they all have the good base layer garments that you can put on and add all sorts of things to.
Okay. And if you wanted a new wardrobe, what's the amount of money you would sort of expect to spend?
You can do it. Like I just shopped with a lady last week and we spent $400 and we got pretty much a new wardrobe for her. You can do it for $200.
Okay.
But you are looking at those more budget shops.
Let's look at the things that she got with that $400.
Okay, so we did most of that shopping in Glassons, and this lady is in her mid-40s. So we got a short jacket, a tunic, a pair of leggings, a merino, a scarf, a necklace, 3 tops like this, and a cardigan.
Wow. That's a lot of clothes.
And that's more than she'd bought in 3 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And she was transformed.
Okay, so how often do you think we should sort of think about spending that much money on new clothes?
I think twice a year, once each season. So once in the summer and once in the winter. And look, if you have only got $50 to spend, you can go into one of those more budget shops and pick up some good funky pieces. Just a necklace like this can brighten up an outfit, or a scarf.
Yeah.
That's all you've got the money for, then that's still going to give you a bit of a fresh modern look. And 2 other things to think about. The hair and the shoes. A good haircut, a new pair of shoes can make you feel $1 million.
Okay, and this is your the blog this week. That's what you're focused on?
Absolutely. So my blog is focused on what I've spoken about today and a little bit more information as well. Okay. So check out flairimage.co.nz.
Excellent.
What's She Wearing style blog.
Cool. And you also have the Corporate Style Club coming up. Tell us a little bit more about this.
24th of June, we've put together, Karen Hamilton and I, from 360 Degrees Events, an event called the Corporate Style Club, attracting people to come and learn about what to wear to work, because the landscape's changed a bit since the earthquake here in Christchurch. Great retailers involved and a fantastic evening from 5:30 to 7:30. So go online, have a look at my website, flairimage.co.nz, and you can go and buy a ticket through that. We'd love to see you there.
Great. Stephanie, always good to have you here on City Life. And that is City Life for today. You can get in touch with me, canetta@ctv.co.nz. You can call me 3777 033, or you can write to me, PO Box 1100 Christchurch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.